Boro play out another stalemate with Burnley in what's a fantastic point in itself, but also, at the same time, a little bit of a missed opportunity. What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Another episode of the Project Boro reviewing show where we look back at every single Boro game. And today we're looking back at Boro's very narrow, tight, eventless 0-0 draw at home to Burnley. Obviously, a team at the top of the championship with a fantastic defensive record, a fantastic away record. So, given Boro's recent form, given the fact we've conceded 6 goals to Plymouth and Sheffield Wednesday, this is, as I say, in isolation, this is a very good point on its own, because Burnley, best away travellers by a mile in the championship. We ran through all this when I previewed the game, of course. So I think for Boro to get a clean sheet and play a team as good as Burnley, albeit, yeah, they're not the best chance creators in the league, so it's not like our goal was going to get absolutely peppered at the same time, but I still think it's a very good point given Boro's recent form and how we were able to be a lot more solid in this game, defend a lot better, and come away from it with a point. But at the same time, I feel like because of two things, it still isn't 100% satisfying, because firstly, had Boro won their recent games and won the games we should have, and I don't care what anyone says, we should have beat Plymouth. They're an absolute shambles. They've lost 6 of the last 7. The only game they didn't lose was against Boro. We should never have conceded 3 goals to that team. And then the way we obviously blew a 3-goal lead against Sheffield Wednesday, what Boro did is they put unnecessary pressure on this game. We dropped out of the playoffs because of recent form, and it meant that this game against Burnley, which should have felt like more of a free hit, actually then became quite a big game that wasn't must win at this stage of the season, but it felt like it's one Boro could have done with winning just to get back in to the top 6, and because of other results. You know, elsewhere in the championship, yesterday, every other side barring Leeds in the top 8 failed to win, and out of the blue, with Sunderland losing, Watford losing, Blackburn losing, Boro could have won and gone 5th, which was unthinkable after the Boxing Day draw and recent form. So all of a sudden, what I think should have just been a free hit for a team like Boro, who should have been in the playoffs comfortably without too many worries at this point, actually then became quite a big game. And that's why I still think it feels like a bit of a missed opportunity, given the fact we could have gone 5th, and given the fact that it would have been a better point if recent results had been better. So it's a good point, which could have been a great point had Boro won their recent games. But we'll delve deep into the game itself. There's not much to it. It's not going to take very long, I don't think, to run through this episode, if I'm in brutal honesty. But first half, I will start with the lineup actually. It was pretty much what I thought it would be. You know, there were a few, nice returns, especially in defence, but as expected, Tom Glover started between the sticks for Boro. We're going to have to look in the emergency January market for a goalkeeper, I think, because Sonny Dieng is seemingly out with a mysterious injury, which seems very cryptic. You know, around a transfer window like January, you start to wonder if there's more to it than just a random injury. Don't know how true it is. I've heard maybe a hip injury, not too sure. And unfortunately, Sol Brynn has suffered a dislocated shoulder and will be out for 3 months. And I'm gutted for him, which means Tom Glover, our usual third choice, is now first choice, and we're going to need backup in that area. But he started. Back four was as expected, barring the return of George Edmondson, who dropped himself straight back into the team, ahead of Matt Clark, who went to the bench. As we know, we've got no other central midfield options other than Hackney and Barlaser, so they both started. And as I thought as well, if they were fit, Azaz and Doak still started, with Bergzog on the left and Latilath up front. Quite honestly, Boro didn't really have any other options. The bench was full of youngsters. As I say, you could have had Matt Clark, maybe, Alex Gilbert could have come on, but the subs were pretty much as expected, as Boro's squad depth is pretty bare at this moment in time. But first half, as with a lot of the game, really, it was nip and tuck. There wasn't much between either side. It's a bit like the game at Turf Moor, which I think's a promising sign for Boro. Twice we've played Burnley now, and I think overall we've competed pretty well with them, and both times both sides have cancelled one another out. You know, I think the one thing that I will say from the first half is Burnley did extremely well, marshalling Finazaz, kept him out the game. So Boro's joy mainly came by going over the top of Finazaz and getting Latelath Bergzorg in behind. The story of the game for Boro really was that we got ourselves into good areas, whether it was from wide areas or, you know, over the top, as I say. But unfortunately, as I mentioned when I looked back at the Leeds game and the Burnley game before that, when you're playing these top teams who have such great defences and give barely anything away, you've got to be absolutely perfect in the attacking third to carve them open and create chances. And that means the football, the passing, the touches, the movement, everything's got to be spot on. And unfortunately tonight, or last night, it was a case for Boro that we just weren't quite there. You know, the touches, the passing, it just wasn't quite as perfect as it needed to be. We had a few half chances, and the big chance for Boro in the first half came for Delano Bergzorg, and it came off the result of a pretty controversial moment, to be honest with you. A great ball over the top, and this actually caused Burnley a few problems. A couple of times we played balls over the top, and they didn't really deal with the bouncing ball very well. Latelath got in behind, and I don't know if there was much to it. It looked like he was bundled over. It was outside the box. There were plenty of players around. So the best Boro could have hoped for was a yellow card and a free kick. So it wasn't as controversial, you could say, as it looked initially, although Michael Carrick was absolutely furious on the touchline. What actually came from that was a glorious opportunity, because James Trafford sort of stops and he's miles out. He's about 35, 40 yards out from his goal, falls to Bergzorg, who pinches it off him really well. And all Bergzorg needs is a little bit more composure. I don't know if he, like a lot of us, was expecting the whistle to blow, expecting the referee to blow up for a foul. Referee was a shocker last night, by the way. He was the main character. He was absolutely loving his whistle last night, was the referee, but he didn't blow on this occasion. And I don't know if that took Bergzorg by surprise, because he could have gone, I say he could have gone over the goalkeeper. I mean, Trafford was right there in front of him. He could have tried to just hit it straight at Trafford, try and get it to hit his arm. If it did, he's off. 10 men, game on. Or maybe take a couple of touches and try and get round him, and then you've literally got an open goal to shoot at. But he takes it straight away, tries to curl it round the goalkeeper, and he doesn't quite get enough on it, and it goes just wide of the post. Fortunately, against teams like Burnley, they're the chances you've got to make count. That was Boro's only really big chance in the whole game, really, you could probably say. Burnley didn't muster too many opportunities themselves in the first half. As I say, I thought Boro defended really, really well. It was clear that Burnley were trying to attack Boro's fullbacks. They kept trying to play long diagonals over the top of Dijksteel, who I thought dealt with them really, really well. Borges struggled a little bit more on the right-hand side. I mean, Jadon Anthony's a fantastic winger at this level, and once again, they doubled up on him and got him behind him a few times, but Boro defended their box pretty well, and there wasn't much else to it, really, in the first half. Not much else going on. Pretty standard. I thought Boro got into some good areas. Burnley had a couple of decent opportunities. Jadon Anthony had a left-footed curler that went over the bar, but nothing else really to it in the first half. However, the second half is where I think Burnley will be disappointed. As I say, Boro didn't really have much. I think Finazaz might have had a curling effort second half that was well saved by Trafford, but it's a shot he should have saved. The two big moments came from a mistake from our goalkeeper, firstly, and secondly, a glaring miss from Burnley's top goal scorer, being Brownhill. But firstly, the big chance, the big moment for Burnley came with a cross from the right-hand side. I think it was I don't know if it was a free kick or a cross, but Tom Glover came to collect it. I thought it was a pretty straightforward take, really. He should have just took it, for me. I think he tries to punch it or whatever, but he gets it all wrong. Ball falls to one of the Burnley's attackers. I don't know if it was Cullen or Brownhill or one of the forwards. Free shot at goal. Dale Fry does absolutely brilliantly to not only get his body in front of the ball, his positioning's absolutely fantastic, but not only that, he does really well to keep his arms out of the way and to chest it wide. It's heroic defending from Dale Fry, and to use a cliche, it's as good as a goal. It's as good as a goal for Boro. But yeah, great positioning, great anticipation, great awareness, and finally, just brilliantly to keep his arms out of the way, because if that remotely hits his arm, he's off, and Boro are down to 10 men. So brilliant top draw defending from Dale Fry to prevent a certain Burnley goal. Second big chance come a little bit later on. Burnley themselves had more joy, I think, playing long balls in behind. There wasn't much happening in the midfield. The midfield in this game was so congested. Both teams had more joy playing long balls over the top. This was a fantastic one to Jadon Anthony. His touch was absolutely exquisite. Gets round Borges, plays in Josh Brownhill, and given his goal-scoring record this season, you would just put your house on him scoring, and he just gets under it. I think the bounce catches him out. He absolutely skies it. Burnley's second big chance of the half disintegrates. And that was all she wrote, really. Boro managed the game for the rest of it, did well. I thought Burnley also had a little bit of game management in there, but both teams, I think, in the end, were happy to settle for a point. And quite honestly, that was it. Nothing else to it, really. And I think overall, yeah, as I mentioned, with other results, it would have been great for Boro to nick this. I think had we nicked it, had we got a winner, would have felt like a big moment. Would have felt like the catalyst, maybe, if Boro had found themselves fifth, having beaten a big team like Burnley. Suddenly all the recent wars go away, and you start, you draw a line under it and you look forward. Unfortunately for us, it's now 3 draws in a row. And as I say, this is a very good point, but it follows 2 very frustrating draws against Plymouth and Sheffield Wednesday. And that's why this point just doesn't feel as satisfying as it should. And looking at the stats, you can see how tight the game was. Burnley edged possession and expected goals, but they only had 1 shot on target, which is credit to Boro's defence. Again, Burnley aren't the most creative side in the world, so it's not the toughest test Boro will come up against this season defensively. But then at the same time, we didn't create all that much going the other way. 3 shots on target. The big chance, of course, came from Bergsorg in the first half. And then we'll look at Boro's players and who I thought played well. I thought Tom Glover did all right. He did get very lucky and he was bailed out by Dale Fry in that second half, but didn't really have a big save to make. It is obviously going to be a much bigger test for him going forward. Being our first choice goalkeeper, we'll have to hope he can step up and deliver the goods in that department. I thought some of the defenders were brilliant. Anthony Dijksteel got man of the match from a lot of people. For me, I'd have gave it to Dale Fry just by that brilliant block alone, but I can see why Dijksteel got man of the match. He was fantastic up against both Hannibal and Kolayosho, who come on. A very good defensive display by Dijksteel against some really top, tricky championship winners. Dale Fry, as I mentioned, outstanding. He's been great since he come back in. And I want to mention Dale Fry because he was out for such a long time. I think it was like 10 months. And he was kind of forgotten, by some Boro fans who maybe thought that was it for Dale Fry. We've got such a great array of centre-backs. Rav Vandenberg is the jewel in the crown, you could say. Darragh Lenihan, a top centre-back at this level, who we've not seen for absolutely ages now. You've then got Mark Clark, who's been Player of the Year at, I think, 2 of his, or maybe 3 of his last 3 clubs at this level. And then George Edmondson, who's coming and been brilliant, obviously, from Ipswich. So it looked impossible for Dale Fry to get back in, but due to suspensions and injuries, he's come back in, and I think he's proven that he is and still can be an absolutely top centre-back at this level, and I thought he did absolutely brilliantly. Edmondson had another shaky display. I think his form's dropped off a little bit. He isn't quite the solid, stable centre-back that he has been, but it's great to have him back in there. Borges had good moments. I think there were times where he did really well, and again, he sort of grew into the game a little bit, I would say, and I liked, him and Bergsorg's relationship down the left as always, but there were, again, times where he was, struggling 1v1 and did get exposed. Again, a lot of it's down to Boro's system. A lot of it is also down to his 1v1 defending. The Borges debate will rumble on between Boro fans. As for the midfield, I thought they were okay. I thought they were better. In possession, it's always tough up against a midfield as good as Burnley's. Plus, the game, as I say, wasn't really played in midfield all that much. It was so congested in there. Midfielders didn't have as much of an offensive influence on the game. What I will say, I thought Hackney and Barlasser did a lot better defensively. A big talking point after the Sheffield Wednesday game was how soft our midfield was in that second half, and that they didn't really put a tackle in, didn't really win a duel, and when you needed a bit of bite in midfield to steady the storm and weather the storm and knock Sheffield Wednesday out of the rhythm, our midfield, was absolutely cut through like a knife through butter. It was non-existent. They were a lot more aggressive in there against Burnley, a lot more challenges. They pressed a lot harder. They had a bit more bite. There's still no Aidan Morris. I still can't wait for him to get back into the team. and these two aren't going to be associated with that more defensive side of the game, but I thought they gave it a better go, and that certainly helped press and disrupt Burnley's very good midfield, so I'll credit them for that. Attacking-wise, Ben Doak, again, you know, even when he's not on form, he still terrorised their left-back and still gave him a torrid time. Hasn't been as influential, though, in terms of goal contributions over the last few games, so a slight dip in form for Ben Doak, but he has played a hell of a lot of football. I'm still surprised to see that he's not been rested as yet. Jones did come on for the final sort of 20 minutes in this game, but yeah, Doak still effective, albeit goal contributions have dried up slightly. Same for Azaz, you know, this wasn't the game for him. Burnley marshalled him out the game incredibly well, and you could tell, you know, out of respect, you could say that they recognised Azaz as one of our key players, and they did really well to prevent him from having much of an influence. Bergzorg continued to be a pest down the left. Saw a few of the old Bergzorg tendencies in this game, though, really. You know, his decision-making in the final third wasn't great at times. Cut inside, had a shot when he shouldn't, held on to the ball for a bit too long at times. But, you know, still, I thought, did really, really well down the left-hand side. It's just that them raw pitfalls that Bergzorg still suffers from with his decision-making. Still rears their head at times, and they did against Burnley. But again, they're such a good defensive side. It was always going to be tough to get through them or have any sort of joy, and could say the same for Latte Lath, really. You know, he had a few decent moments in behind, but their defence didn't really give him all that much, and without Tommy Conway on the bench, we didn't really have any alternatives, which might have benefited us in this game. And finally, we'll look at the league table. Boro are back in the top 6 with that point. Obviously, the teams either side of us have games in hand, so I'm not going to get too excited. But yeah, it's one of them, isn't it? You know, the two teams above us lost, the team below us lost. What West Brom drew, it was a chance for Boro to get into 5th. And I guess the only way of sort of wrapping this up is to say, well, this point against Burnley isn't a bad point. It's a great point. The bottom line is, Boro should have been already in the top 6. We should have already been maybe alongside or above Blackburn, and this point would have looked like one that's only solidified our place in the top 6 further, when in reality, unfortunately, it's just edged us into the top 6 with teams around us still having a little bit of an advantage. So it's more so Boro's previous form and previous games that I think has let us down, not this individual result. And we'll see how we build on it, because the way I'm sort of looking at it, undefeated in 4, and I know this is a dangerous thing to say with Middlesbrough, and I'm very much saying this, you know, cautiously, but we have Hull up next and then Cardiff. Now, obviously, Hull have just went to Blackburn and won. Cardiff have just went to Watford and won. So neither of these games are absolute dead certs, but Boro should be looking at Hull and Cardiff as 6 points from 6. If we can get 2 wins from the next 2, suddenly, from our last 5 games, 3 draws and 2 wins, that's 9 points. It's almost 2 points a game. 9 points from 5. That's not bad. So if Boro can get 2 wins from the next 2, the last 5 games, they look a little bit more respectable. Yep, 3 of them were draws, and yep, we should never have lost both, or we should never have drew against Plymouth and Sheffield Wednesday, but if we can win the next 2, this Christmas period then looks a little bit more respectable, and we might then be back right into the top 6, because teams around us are dropping points. But that's why we're all where we are. That's why Blackburn, Boro, Watford, West Brom aren't where Sunderland and Burnley are, for example, because we're just not consistent enough. So it's a case of who can find that consistency, and Boro have a real chance to do that over the next 2 games. And talking of the next 2, I'll be back tomorrow to preview the whole game. Obviously, there's a massive quick turnaround of games at the moment, so I'll try and get the content out as quickly as I can. But not only is it an important trip for Boro, but yeah, cup your ears, Boro fans, I'm going to be there. We all know what that means. But the first away win for me in the league, in the flesh, hopefully it will be over after New Year's Day, and we'll finally see Boro win away from home in the flesh, and it can be the start of a good run once again for us. But I will be there in person, which usually means one thing: Boro don't win. We'll see how it goes, but I'll try and vlog it depending on what my view's like at the game. And of course, I'll be back tomorrow to preview it. I'll be back after New Year's Day to review it, probably on January 2nd, because I don't know when I'll get back from Hull. It is a 5:30 kickoff after all. But until next time, guys, if you've enjoyed this video, do hit a like on the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel for much more. We review and preview every Boro game on the channel, of course. and leave me a comment below with your thoughts on the game, whether you're a Boro fan, Burnley fan, or neutral. And if you do listen over on your podcast provider, give me a like, a rating, and a follow over there. And if you want to listen to me over on your chosen podcast provider and you'd rather listen to these videos on the go, there are links in the description to go and check out this very series on your chosen podcast provider. But until next time, guys, do take care. Thank you so much for watching. Fingers crossed Boro can kick off 2025 with a win at Hull. And I'll see you all in the next one.